This session, which is excitingly called How Mixed Reality and AI Are Redefining Retail from Shop Floor to Supply Chain. So I'm delighted to welcome now Leila Martin, Director of New Devices at Microsoft, together with Matt Raymond, Chief Engineer from the Manufacturing Technology Centre. Please give them a round of applause, even though they are here already. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Welcome in the afternoon. Hopefully your morning has been good. I've been actually sitting into quite a few of the sessions. You will see, if you are observant, that we were introduced as two people, and yet there are three people in the slide. So in addition to a little bit of a power cut in the morning, to start the morning here, I also woke up to a email that was sent to me by one of my partners at 2:47 in the morning. I was not awake, but my partner was, fortunately, because he's at the hospital. So I've been told that he is going to be okay, but unfortunately it means that Lewis is not going to be able to join. So I will hopefully be a good stand-in. What I want to be able to talk to you about today is really around mixed reality, which is one of the major features of computing that Microsoft are investing in. In fact, there's a couple of core areas: artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and mixed reality. When Satya Nadella, our CEO, goes around the world talking externally with our customers and with investors, and then also internally, he is always advocating about how these are really transforming some of the things that we are doing. Now, it starts off with this adage. We've seen this so many times, and we know that we live in this day and age right now where over half of the companies, the Fortune 500 companies, have gone obsolete since 2000. And that statistic has actually gone up because it's a couple of years old. And we know, and we're here today in technology and business in one of the most developed countries in the world that also has one of the most competitive markets and landscapes, that there has been so much that is happening around technology that's bringing this forward. And of course, we call this the fourth industrial revolution. And when we start thinking about what this means, and when I start thinking about what this means from a mixed reality perspective, what mixed reality essentially is, which is it's a new interface, it's a new layer into being able to see it. In essence, it provides us with superpowers, which means that all of these other elements that we work with, that we see from a technology perspective, whether these be digital twins, autonomous robots, and the Internet of Things, all of these things are able to work together. And part of the reason why we have this astonishing pace of change, and these are some great data sets from the World Economic Forum, which is we have seen the cost of technologies come down so significantly. And you can see, well, if I have my glasses, I can see. If I had HoloLens, I could even see more. But the cost of drones, for instance, from 2007 to 2012, I think is that data point, $100,000 going down to $700. The ability to be able to do genetic sequencing on DNAs has gone from 2.7 billion to about $1,000 just by 2014. So sensor data, all of these things are becoming miniaturized, smaller, and far more competitive, or cost competitive, in order to allow us to be able to be integrating that into our business environment and helping us to become far more competitive and have new offerings. And so what we see in terms of the companies, which is for some of the largest companies, it used to take a good 10, 20 years for companies to reach $1 billion. Google did it in 8. We have Tesla that did it in 5. We're seeing companies like Snapchat and Xiaomi do it in a couple of years. So this is enabled really by these factors of the technologies that have gone before us. So what we know is this digitization is happening fast. You're all here in this room, and all of the speakers that are coming through yesterday or today and tomorrow are really talking about a number of the trends and capabilities that are enabling this. What we know is every CEO is thinking about this today, 100%. If it's not 100%, I'm very curious to talk to the ones that aren't. And what they're telling us right now is that they're really having a hard time keeping up with the rapidity rapidity and the quickness of all of this change that is happening today, because they're expecting that this is happening within the next 2-3 years. So let me talk, if that's the scene setting and the context, that's the last 2 or 3 years, or 3 years is when we started to bring out mixed reality. At Microsoft, we introduced HoloLens just in the UK, just a little over 2 and a bit years ago. What it is, and I'm going to talk today a little bit about just some of the practical use cases. If it felt a lot like science fiction when we launched it, we weren't really sure, what is this device going to be able to do? How is it really going to help with digital transformations? Not just kind of gimmicky things, but really changing the way that we operate from kind of front-end retail right through to back-end supply chain and logistics. So first thing that I want to do is just kind of define a little bit about what we mean by mixed reality. And it starts off with, it's really quite straightforward. It's essentially being able to blend the physical and the digital world together. And if through all of human existence, we've lived in the physical world, and maybe in the last 50 or 60 years, we've been able to go over to a computer and tell a computer with zeros and ones in this digital world, we can tell the computer what we want it to do, and it's harnessed so much capability for us. But the ability for me to be completely unconstrained and be able to be in this physical world and then put on a head-mounted display like a HoloLens and be able to see anything, digital or physical, together is incredibly powerful in terms of what it gives humans the ability to be able to do. And so we think of this as a spectrum in terms of the types of devices that enable mixed reality experiences. On one side, you've got everything from augmented experiences, whether these be phones, tablets, things that you would hold up and be able to see an augmentation or an overlay into the real world, such as in Pokemon Go, or a lot of those retail applications that help me to be able to imagine how a piece of furniture is going to exist within my home environment. On the other side of the spectrum, we have something like virtual reality devices, which are really great for incredibly immersive experiences, maybe training experiences in a commercial world, or definitely consumer and gaming type of experiences. And then we also have this other category that's a little bit more forward-leading in terms of that real ability to be able to stand alone and completely showcase rich, immersive holograms into your field of view, such as a HoloLens. But those are just a category of a subset of many devices. There's 20 billion odd connected devices that are going to exist, many that are going to be sold through retailers over the next number of years, and many that are also going to exist in the back ends of our retail customers. And these are things like not just head-mounted displays, but also drones. We at Microsoft also have incredibly exciting edge devices such as Project Connect for Azure that will be coming out, that will be the most leading depth sensor on the market. And of course, we've got phones, which are completely at the other end of the spectrum, completely ubiquitous. Everyone has them in their pocket. And the whole idea, though, which is all of these devices can connect in, and not only are they intelligent, being able to have machine learning on those devices, but also connect to the cloud. And with the ability to be able to do that, what it means is that you have a plethora of capability that will allow you to have environmental understanding, object recognition, meaning that, if you want to, for instance, be able to have a pair of one HoloLens, for instance, be able to recognize something into your environment and know what that is. Natural language understanding and the ability for the environment to be able to just automatically, or for you to automatically be able to engage in that environment. So within that, one of the things that I was talking about earlier, which is this is not about science fiction. This is very much around things that exist today. We've been on the market. We've been working deeply with our customers to understand what they're doing. And I'll just give a quick example. Real-world meetings. Today's modern version of real-world meetings are still on computers. They may be Skype, it may be with mobile phones. And what we are trying to do, if you're in a retail environment, for instance, trying to figure out a planogram, You're sending around a CAD file and going, hey, let's look at this and let's make some decisions around what we're going to put within that planogram. And you're sending it around and you're getting sign-offs and buy-offs, and that whole process is still left to interpretation. And so one of the things that we're starting to do, and we're seeing right now, we've got a number of partners that have products in the market called Hollow Meeting, or variations of the theme. And in this example, it's a really great, I think, visual to be able to explain the example that any person, place, or object can be either physical or it can be digital. So in the case of this visual, what you'll essentially see is, from a people perspective, you'll see real people that are actually physically in this meeting. They're standing up, they're engaged, they're looking at something. And you also have an avatar that comes in. And we're seeing real experimentation and real progress from avatars being a kind of Star Trek-y avatar, like the one in the picture, through to real like representations of people, which is incredibly strong in terms of the next best thing from actually being there. So that's people. In terms of objects, in this case, they're looking at a digital wind farm. And that's actually a maquette, that's actually physical objects, but they're also looking at the digital PowerPoint or graphic there, helping them to understand the sales data that's helping them take a look, for instance, at IoT and data information to help them to make decisions about that wind farm. And then place, my favorite thing. They can be anywhere. In this case, they may be in their office, but they could actually be physically on the wind farm, because you can, when you're working in digital and bringing the digital and physical together, you can make any of those decisions. So that's starting to happen right now. But let me bring it practically back to our world of retail. And there's a number of different things that we've been seeing over the last couple of years as I've been working with retailers. The most logical right now, which is things like brand storytelling. There's great examples of, and I'm going to show a couple of visuals in a moment, but product configuration. There's spatial planning, one of my favorite topics. Being able to see and make decisions from a spatial perspective and taking all that spatial data, whether that be from a retail whole physical store scenario and or specifically on a category shelf. We can get great, rich merchandising 3D data that exists from the object graphs. We've got collaboration, including remote expert support, and then the back end side of this in terms of retail logistics, distribution, warehousing, and all of those other elements. So with that, I'll give a couple of concrete examples. We have BMW. They had a Be the One Who Dares campaign. They did this in about 22 of their flagship stores or retail outlets around the world. They also bundled this in with a really creative social media campaign as well. They worked with a partners of ours, a mixed reality partner called St. Elmo's. And the whole point for them, going back to the session that just happened before lunch, people that they are trying to target for this car are younger, they're experience-oriented, so how do they make sure that they have a really great, compelling way to experience? And that's great for luxury goods, right? Really great. But we've also seen this in terms of maybe smaller luxury goods with Remy Martin. And Remy Martin was doing this in a number of different global locations, including Harrods here in the UK last year, and they actually saw a nice bump in terms of sales. But the real power behind this, of course, and this is a multi-lens experience, so many people can be wearing the HoloLens around, taking a look at this, but being able to really convey the depth of the brand, their heritage, and get really strong kind of 4 or 5 minute engagement with them per user. Oops, I'm going the wrong way. Let's go the right way. But then you've got other brands like Volvo doing things like product configurators. When you have a very large object, such as a car, and you've got many different colors, makes, models, and iterations, being able to provide a brand with the ability to be able to have that capability for one consumer to come in and be able to have limitless options, What should the color of the car look like? What should the rims look like? How do I make decisions across the things that are important, as well as from Volvo's perspective, how do they convey things like, the importance of security and safety, which is the essence of the brand, and make sure that they are conveying those attributes to consumers. So those are a few examples. Again, kind of in the retail side, Microsoft Store, we actually worked with another of our partners called Studio 216. They're actually close to us in Redmond, and they have been helping us with Microsoft Stores actually do layout and configurations for new store concepts, or how we're actually going to start configuring and doing the layout of our Surface devices and our branded experiences to help us make decisions. And we can integrate all of our IoT as well as live data within those environments, so sales data to make decisions about what should go where and what colors make sense, things like that. So recently, Microsoft, we have started to make more what we call first-party applications. So as we've really understood what customers are doing and wanting to do with our products, for us, how do we think about something that's out of the box, that you can just pick up a HoloLens device, for instance, and just start using right away? And a couple that we just announced that are currently in beta today are, one is Microsoft Layout. So the whole idea is right here, I could take any of my CAD assets, anything in terms of either this, physical store layout. I can figure out where I'm using my digital CAD assets, where my retail shelves are, so that I can place them in situation. I can then start putting some of the merchandising all within that today. So that exists, and we've seen customers, and this is still in beta right now, but saying things like the ability to virtually lay out a showroom and see it in situ is so much better than just through computer CAD models. The ability to share this experience with my suppliers who are across and distributed across the UK is invaluable. So that's one of our first-party applications in beta. The second one that's in beta is Microsoft Remote Assist. And what essentially this is that the person that's wearing a HoloLens can be on a retail floor, for instance, or they could be maybe working with a piece of equipment that's not working right, and they can do essentially a video call back to an expert, and the person on the other side is able to see what they're seeing and guide them through, or being able to even get a good understanding about what does that retail shelf look like from headquarters into a store environment. So super straightforward and, as I mentioned, out of the box. So this is the point where I'd say, okay, practical examples, but don't just listen to me. Let's hear from some of our partners. And of course, I am not Louis Dean, the Joint Managing Director of Visor. However, I will say, similar to the conversation from the CIO of Media Saturn earlier today, one of the most important things I think in this industry is working with really small, nimble partners. And in this case, Visor, I think, is one of the most exciting partners in the UK. If you are interested at all in spatial analytics, I would encourage you to take a look at their website and see some of the work that they are doing. So what they have built essentially is a PaaS-based cloud platform called Vertex, and they call it a spatial engine for Industry 4.0. What that allows them to do is to be able to essentially give their customers a platform that customers can then take their information and data and put on top to create a true digital twin. That is, and I'll go show some visuals in a second, that allows them to be able to create shared and persistent spaces that integrates with other technologies, whether that be the IoT, real-time data, any type of device format, and enable the collaboration. So in this example, for instance, you have a physical layout. What they're essentially able to do, that can be any type of physical layout, of course, call it a grocery store, call that a small retail footprint, and create a digital twin version of that by persistent What I mean by that, or what they mean by that, is it means that when you create that environment and you put a HoloLens on and you have all the holograms and then you go away for a week, you come back and everything is still there. It's all persistent. Collaboration means that you can have multiple people seeing it from either tablet devices, phone devices, HoloLens devices, and they can also be distributed around the world. And then also that whole notion of the sensor and IoT integration, because it's a platform, it's taking all of the data, feeding it in, and that allows you to then be able to display information on top of that data set. So if one of the things that Visor had done over the course of the summer is that they put together with the University of Hull a mixed reality accelerator. And the reason why they were doing that is a lot of their customers were saying, listen, I'm really engaged, but I don't have the talent internally, and we want to go explore, and we want to do a proof of concept that's specific to us. And so alongside the University of Hull that put a significant investment in, they basically took a bunch of the really smart computer science students from the region, and they worked with 5 really amazing global companies. So Centrica, Learning Mate, Audi, AB InBev, and another one that we're not allowed to talk about yet because I'm going to hold that for later, and doing a number of different really interesting scenarios, actually some really leading edge scenarios, leveraging things like custom vision, artificial intelligence, and integrating that in. In the case of retail, AB InBev is a really great example, and what they were looking at doing is really giving power to the sales reps to be able to harness HoloLens spatial data and IoT devices. And so Michael Cott, who is the AB InBev digital marketing and innovations lead, basically gave the team the charter, because they all paired up, the company plus the students and Visor over the course of their mixed reality accelerator. And basically his charter is we want to use data analytics on everything from customer behavior and preferences to beer flows and wastage to help bars better plan their product stocks and promotions. We want to empower those outlets and our sales teams to target and optimize their activities and benefit us as a supplier, the pub itself, and importantly, the end consumer, whose needs will be better served. And so within that, what they have done is they've been able to build out this proof of concept that allows AB InBev to have far more data about how to create better optimization of experiences for the pubs and for the pubs for the people that go to the pubs, which I'll be doing shortly soon. And things like optimizing traffic flow based off of data patterns, where the placement of products, they're thinking about things like alcoholic versus non-alcoholic beverages, where do we put that insight, and then how do we cater our promotions through the data that we have. So that's a few examples in terms of some of the front of house, but now I'm going to turn it over to Matt, who's the chief engineer over at the MTC, to talk about some of the back end side in terms of logistics and supply chain.
Okay, cool. Hello. So where we work is more in the ability to provide mixed reality to the stores. So while it's a great customer experience to go into a store and use mixed reality, one of the challenges is if someone working in a store really has to learn on the job, they have to use a lot of their own knowledge and skills to be able to understand about the products and what goes on. What's been mentioned a few times already is around the idea of Industry 4. However, if you notice from my graphic, Industry 4 is all the far way to the left. And most manufacturing facilities, most facilities that are making your products, are actually more between what we call reactive and monitor, which means there's a really long journey for the manufacturing side, the production side of your businesses to actually get to a point where they can really vertically integrate mixed reality into their day-to-day schemes. The best integration of mixed reality or even technology we've seen so far has actually been through Snapchat. I won't say who's using that, but they're definitely up on the board behind me. So there is a long way. And we need to make sure that we don't leave behind the stores themselves. But looking at where you can use the technology, we've already shown it to be really useful in layout, again, around production facilities. We've also done a lot of work around remote assist. We found that to be absolutely fantastic. Anything from trying to work out how to set up equipment through to how to commission and also right the way through to training. However, I'm very practical, and what I really wanted to do was actually try this technology in a practical application and try to get over the hurdles. The institute I work for, MTC, we're about launching technology. We're trying to take the risk out and to support customers going through that journey. I identified about 6 months ago that one of the biggest areas of data with any retail sector is around the audit process and the data that's created therein. One of the challenges with that is that most of the auditing that I've seen has been done on paper. So what we thought we'd do is try to work out how to digitize that. So working with Sainsbury's, we've been able to start to bring mixed reality to the store, to bring the HoloLens onto the actual shop front to help the shop front workers undertake their day-to-day tasks. So one of the areas that we're focusing on in particular is around the fresh produce, in particular looking at things like defects, what's acceptable, what's not. And that works on everything from a fresh food product right the way through to a piece of clothing or a piece of technology. If someone picks something up off the shelf, it doesn't look right, typically they have to then wander around the store, find a manager and ask them, or use Snapchat. So by using the HoloLens, what we've actually done is created a new data store to allow the HoloLens to display information about the product that person has picked up. So these are the store workers, but it also could be someone who comes into the store. So the idea is they pick up a product, and then using the HoloLens, and in particular using AI on the cloud, we've been able to detect the product that the person is holding, and we can then tell them whether the product is a good product or bad product, based on a series of criteria which are already defined within their auditing process. And that's been really pivotal for us. The ability to create that data store and then share it means that we've got instant access to what would be something that is defective or something that's absolutely fine. And it's eliminating a lot of our false positives that we get around something that isn't acceptable. We've also used a lot of the remote support as well, because when we're trying to bring suppliers together, especially when you see something at a store that isn't right, typically what then happens is meetings, there are movement around the country, there's a lot of time and effort involved in trying to get everyone together to try and work out what was the cause of that problem. Well, again, using things like Teams and mixed reality, we've been able to actually send the HoloLens out to the suppliers, and that supplier could be anywhere around the world, so that they can all participate in a meeting and try and do some fault finding together, so saving a bit of time. One of the other things we've had to learn on this is exactly how you do the workshop. How do you actually create this in the first place? So at MTC, we've created what we call an envisioning workshop. And that workshop really, through visual media and an awful lot of post-its, allows us to kind of define what it is we're trying to solve and how to bring that into the visualization space. And again, the whole idea of this is to kind of move the supply chain to a digital supply chain, have a digital factory. But in order to do that, what we've got to do is take a lot of those manual and paper-based processes and put them either on the cloud or on some kind of server. Anecdotally, one of the biggest challenges we've had with this has actually been around data, and we've really struggled to get hold of data. So much so, we've now started hosting meetings where the IT teams are present in those meetings. Originally they weren't, and what we've recognized is that not having the IT teams present is a major impediment to getting these types of digitalization and mixed reality solutions actually delivered to your facility. So the idea really is that by having the digitization, we're able to connect everything from the production plant right the way through to point of sale. So when you're doing things like root cause analysis, why did it go wrong? Why is that stitch broken? Why is that product damaged? Very, very easy to do, and it's something that we can speed up enormously. And it's a huge cost saving to, I'd say, at least 3 of those supermarkets on the back wall there. So that's my section. If you want to ask me any more, please do later.
Thanks, Ben. All right. So I suppose the question, which is hopefully if you're not already exploring, although many of the ones are on the back are, but hopefully you will be. We have right now, we know that at least, 49%, a lot of the companies also that I'm speaking to right now are currently beyond proof of concept and actually really getting into pilot and starting to really understand how do these types of technologies work. And we have a number that are starting to move actually into implementation, especially as the solutions and the partners that we're working with get more advanced in terms of their solutions and are also integrating with the back-end systems because they all have to kind of work together. And so within who is investing, and if it's hard to read, which I'm sure it is, it says investing substantially. We were joking about we're not entirely sure what it substantially means, but it definitely is an area of core focus when we start start thinking about real transformative capability across a number of different industries and sectors. We definitely are seeing a lot within manufacturing and retail supply, and an increase between the years of that says 2017 to 2020. And then in terms of the enterprise types of services, the roles that are happening where developers are starting to build solutions. Not surprisingly, based off of how I've articulated today, it's not just in terms of the shop floor and what we're seeing in terms of the consumer experiences. That is definitely an important thing, but it really has an opportunity in terms of how we think about services, the role that manufacturing plays, and also the suppliers working with you as retailers is equally important, and sales and marketing obviously is an element to that. So the how to get started, very straightforward, which is if you want to be developing in-house and have the skills, great, we've got lots of skill sets to enable that. We have a number of first-party applications that are currently free because they're on beta right now, so I'd encourage people that have a HoloLens or want a HoloLens to go out and start exploring with that. And then critically, if either you're a partner and you look at this and say an extension, a logical extension is by adding mixed reality capability, then we'd love you to be a mixed reality partner. And if you're a customer that's looking for great partners, Visor, the Manufacturing Technology Center, a number of the other partners that we're working with and that are also on our Microsoft.com/HoloLens website are really great starting points for you to learn. So with that, I think I am done.
Thank you very much indeed. Round of applause, please. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Layla and Matt, if I can ask you to take the floor, I'm afraid we are out of time, so we have no time for Slido in this instance. But do please keep using that app, and I'm sure you'll be around and happy to take questions over a cup of coffee. Thank you very much indeed.